So we're certainly grateful for our tellers who are taking this chance with us, and we're just happy to be able to be bringing this to you virtually. So this is actually our first virtual Storytellers New Haven, and we're certainly glad that you all joined us. Um, while we are doing our best to remain physically distant, we recognize the healing power and the necessity to connect socially. And so, if you think back to when Karen and I first started doing this, that was the main point, right? Is to build community and to make connections. And so, we felt that the show must go on. So, I just want to say thank you all for joining us and thank you for all the participants. And we will get through this. We will get through this pandemic and the self quarantine, and hopefully storytellers will be a great part of your healing process. So I just want to again say thank you for joining in, and thank you to all of our participants. And I will turn it over to Karen.
All right, thank you, Kevin. So welcome to the April edition of Storytellers New Haven. Storytellers New Haven is a community building initiative that Kevin and I started several years ago out of a desire to continue to use story in ways that we were introduced to it through Bill Graustein's community leadership program. Story as a means of leadership and story as a means of community building. And we both are transplants to New Haven. We love New Haven. We love the fact that there are so many people here with different kinds of stories in an environment that's small enough that we feel like we can actually take a moment to try to get to know a lot of them. We think we build a lot of connection through hearing story, finding commonality, and having a moment to pause at where there's some difference. So we think of it as New Haven, a city of 130,000 people, and we want to take a moment to hear each of those stories. We're excited to be with you virtually tonight. Our first time doing it virtually. We have two amazing tellers who came forward and said that they would be willing, they had signed up and they said they'd be willing to do it anyway in this virtual way. We want to thank the support of Bill Graustein. We want to thank the support, our technology support, which is so essential tonight, through Baobab Tree Studios and Kevin Ewing and his team. We are usually at Concat, as you know. So tonight you're on your own. I hope you have your own refreshments, your own something to drink, and maybe a good cookie like you would usually get at Concat. And we will all be back to support Concat when we're able to meet again in physical connection. So tonight, our first teller, and our format is very simple. We have two tellers queued up. Each one will tell a story of about 15 or so minutes. At the end of that, we're going to try to manage some questions. So if you're following us on YouTube and watching and want to type in a question in the chat box, we will pull those up and be able to ask some questions of our tellers. We'll then switch and hear from our second teller. If you have a desire to be a teller, you can certainly be in contact with Kev or I through our Facebook, Storytellers New Haven, or by shooting us an email, storytellersnewhaven@gmail.com. So without further ado, let's get to our first teller. So first up tonight, oh, you know what, Denise, I lost your bio that quick. So now I gotta wing it on the bio. But our first teller is Denise Santisteban, who is going to tell you a bit in her, I'll find the bio at some point, but she's going to tell you a bit of a story today that links in some of you may have gotten to know her through the International Festival of Arts and Ideas. You have the bio, Kev? Yeah, that's the bio. I'm going to kick it back to Kev.
All right. So Denise has been telling stories in public for almost 3 years. No stranger to the performing arts, she has been a stage manager and designer in the San Francisco Bay Area, as well as in the greater New Haven area. A part of the team at the International Festival of Arts and Ideas, Denise manages all the walking, biking, boating, and the most delicious food tours. So she's someone you definitely need to know. She is a part of the Institute Library Story Sharing Group and has told at their celebrations. Denise has also told at the Mouth Open Hartford and songs and stories at Next Door. So without further ado, we'll turn it over to Denise and welcome.
Thank you very, very much. It was a morning like every other morning. I woke, I did my stretches, and then I wandered into the kitchen for breakfast. Gloria, the lady who takes care of me, was standing at the sink, and she turned around and gave me a big smile. Good morning, Leo. How are you? Your breakfast is ready. I looked at the breakfast. Cereal again. Ugh. What I really wanted was the bacon she was frying up on the stove, but she keeps telling me it's not healthy for me. I keep wanting to tell her I'm old. It doesn't matter. But I know there's no use arguing with Gloria. So I have my cereal, and then I go into the living room to my favorite chair. I love this spot. It's right in front of the window. And in the morning, the sun comes in, and it gives me a great vantage point to see the yard and all the activity that's going on in it. There's the birds up in the cherry trees, and then the squirrels running around with all their acorns up and down the oak tree. And every now and then, that orange cat comes over. I hate that cat. It poops in my yard. When I was younger, I used to chase it. It's not worth the effort anymore. I was just about to doze off when I see her running up the hill. I don't know why she caught my eye. I live on the Hartford Turnpike, and there's all kinds of runners coming up my hill. It might have been her neon green shirt she was wearing, but I think it was the way she was running, like she enjoyed herself. Most of the people that come up my hill look miserable. They look like someone told them, you have to get exercise, now get out there and run. And they come up this hill huffing and puffing, their faces are red, and they look like they're about to keel over. But she came up, nice, light, running up. I watched her get to the crest of the hill and then go on. You know, I used to run like that. I used to love running. I would run the trails in East Rock Park and Lake Wintergreen, and Gloria used to run with me. And then the runs started getting shorter, and then they became long walks, and then shorter walks, and now we don't do them so much. I'd like it to say because Gloria cannot keep up with me, but in all honesty, my legs are just not what they used to be. The next morning, I kind of hurried through breakfast. I didn't even complain about the cereal. And I went in and sat in my chair to see if she'd come by again. And sure enough, here she came up that hill. And the next day it was the same thing. And that day I realized she loved what she was doing. And I decided I loved her for that, whoever she was. She became my runner. And then one day, as she came up the hill, she looked up the window at me. She saw me and she waved, and I waved back. And that became our pattern. I would wait, she'd come by, she'd wave. And then when the weather got warmer, Gloria and I went to sit out on the front porch. And here came my runner up the hill. And this time she didn't just wave. She said, hello. And then other days was, how are you? And Gloria and I would wave back and say hello. And one day Gloria looks at me, she goes, you want to run with her, don't you? You bet I do. But my legs aren't that strong anymore. What can you do? So that summer I lived vicariously through her. And then one morning, it took me a really long time to get up. And I wasn't even hungry. I just went and got in my chair. And Gloria came over and said, what's the matter, old man? You not feeling too good? No, I'm not. I just want to see my runner and then I'm going back to bed. And Gloria didn't bother me about it. And the next day I kind of felt the same. And then on the third day, Gloria said, we got to go get this checked out, old man, okay? And before I knew it, we were standing in the driveway about to get in the car. And here comes my runner. And this time, instead of running by and just waving, she came right up to us. Can you believe that? And she said, hi, I'm Denise. Can I pet your dog? Nice to meet you, Denise. I'm Gloria. And this is Leo. Leo is not feeling so well today, so we're going to go to the VET. Oh, sorry to hear that. Hi, Leo. Hi, aren't you a handsome boy? Oh, you're such a good dog. You know, I look for you every day. So you get better, okay? And I'll see you later. And then she ran off, but not before petting me on the head and giving me a kiss and scratching behind my ears. Oh, I looked at Gloria. Best day ever, right? I ran up the hill a couple of days later and I looked for Leo, but he wasn't in the window or on the porch. And he wasn't there the next day either, or the next. And I started to get really worried about him. So the next time I ran by the house, I did something I've never done before. I ran up to the house and knocked. And Gloria answered the door. Hi, remember me? My name's Denise. I met you in the driveway last week. I've been running by and I haven't seen Leo, and I was getting kind of worried. Oh, honey, Leo's gone. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to hear that. You know, I looked for him every day, and knowing that he was at the window, the top of the hill, made the run easier a lot of times. I'm really sorry for your loss. And Gloria tells me, you know, Leo was an old man, but he looked for you every day. He would sit in his chair and watch you run up that hill. Thank you so much for coming by. And Gloria started to shut the door and then stopped. Would you like to come in for a cup of tea, dear? And I knew that morning, the run could wait. Thank you very much.
Whoops. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Denise. All right, can you see me? All right, I think I'm back. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I've been trying to multitask and see what's in the chat room as well. But let me kick it off also. So tell us, is that the first time that you've shared that story?
No, I did it at Telebration about 3 years ago, and then I haven't done it since then. So it was kind of nice to tell that story. It's kind of a dear story to me. So it was nice to be able to do that again.
Absolutely. I'm seeing a lot of Denise. That was wonderful. Beautiful story, beautiful, nice job. You've got a lot of friends, a lot of comments in the chat around this. Are you yourself a dog owner?
Yes, I've had a lot of dogs. I've had many running dogs, and I've had some that not so much.
Absolutely.
But that story is kind of generated from when I was training for a marathon, and part of my run was running Hartford Turnpike. And there was always this big white dog along one of the houses that would kind of run the fence with me. So I felt like he was kind of my buddy for a while.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Kev, do you have questions?
Well, yeah, I was trying to see what you were seeing in that YouTube, but I guess I'll let you ask the questions. But So I guess my question was how inspiring or how motivating was the dog?
Oh, great. I look for him every day. I shouldn't say him. I looked for the dog every day. And it was just, when you're training and running certain paths over and over again, there were people and instances and places that just become part of your daily environment. And that dog was certainly one of my highlights.
Is it also about the timing? Kind of, you knew where you were along your route when you get to the dog or you get to the certain
Yeah.
places.
Yeah. So you're going, okay, once I see the dog, then I know it's, a couple more miles than I've done.
Right.
And he was on a
Just
hill.
trying to get to the end.
So sometimes if I reversed the route, he was going up the hill and sometimes he was coming down the hill.
Got it.
So you really pull people in trying to, so there's a question here. So you're the runner in the story? So there's a moment where it becomes clear who you are in the story.
Yeah, I was the runner.
So she is the runner. There's a
Glad
question.
I wasn't the only one.
No.
So I'm glad I wasn't the only one who had a question about who was the runner.
That's me.
Question from our friend Sherry Brooks, who is a regular at Storytellers, asks, how was the conversation with Gloria?
It was a long time ago. I'll say I haven't run a marathon in a really long time. It was just a very nice, sort of thing. She told me about the dog. That was about it.
And a lot of people are remembering their dogs. Jesri is remembering her old man Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
Susan B is reminded of her dog. So you bring up a lot of memories. So thank you for bringing your furry running partner into the story with us. We really appreciate it, Denise.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It was wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you. So you have proven that this can be done remotely, virtually. We so appreciate you being the first to jump into the pool with us here, and appreciate our friends who have showed up and are in our chat box and watching along with us. So thank you. We are going to transition to our second teller for the evening. So our second teller is Roxana Walker Canton, who I first got to know as family friends and through her work as a university professor and a filmmaker, and got to view one of the documentaries she put together. I've since gotten to know her through both her academic work and educational work she does in the community. She is a business owner of Kim Can Tutoring. She is a newly elected member of the Hamden Board of Education, and here with us today virtually, coming from her home. So welcome, Roxana. We're glad to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity.
Absolutely. Take it away. You're all set.
All right. Thank you. Okay. One day, I was up in arms and completely distraught about some political issue and seemingly disengagement that so many people seem to have about this issue. And to this day, I don't even remember what the issue was. But I recall expressing my distress to my husband, David. And I remember saying aloud, why do I have to care so much? Why can't I be like so many other people who can hear about injustice and read about injustice and even shake their heads in disgust about racism, classism, sexism, homophobia, but then don't speak up or do anything? Why do I have to care so much? I mean, it keeps me up at night. It gives me anxiety. So I'm hypothesizing that when we experience some kind of injustice as a child, whether it be microaggressions or some not so microaggressions, we hold it inside and it becomes part of our DNA, part of who we become. And we live our lives fighting the battles that we couldn't fight growing up, or we hate that feeling of marginalization so much that we disassociate from anything that could possibly bring us back to those situations. So I come from a military and lower middle working class family with middle class aspirations. My father was in the Navy and my mother was a full-time mother and wife. I have 4 older siblings, Joanne, Jerome, Brandon, Kelly, and my younger sister Jerry came to us much later in life. We lived the military life. We lived in Navy housing where Blacks and whites lived in the same neighborhood, but where whites outnumbered Blacks and where whiteness reigned supreme. We participated in Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. We went to church, celebrated all the Christian holidays, and not for one moment did we forget that we were Black. This was during the 70s and not far from the Civil Rights Movement. While Black and white children attended the same schools and maybe even the same scout troops, we lived very separate lives. My parents didn't have white friends. No one white visited our house on the regular, and we didn't regularly visit the homes of anyone white. My mother did not buy my sister nor me white dolls. In fact, if the newest doll that did all the new things like wet its diaper or say mama didn't come in a Black version, then we would not get the newest doll. In my house, if a white kid called you a nigger, as my father might say, you were supposed to knock the shit out of them. My parents didn't care if you were sent to the office for that kind of fight. It was serious business, more serious than even the children knew, but our parents knew. I remember feeling invisible in those Virginia schools. Mrs. Vienna, I think she was my first grade teacher. She wouldn't say much to me, but she would do that smile that white women teachers did, and some still do, to Black children when they have to be professional, but truly hate the task of teaching Black children. That would not be the last time that I experienced that smile. What I remember about Mrs. Bullard, my 3rd grade teacher, was that she seemed to smoke a lot. And the 2 little white girls, one named Hillary and one named Paige, were the teacher's favorites. I remember taking a placement test for reading, and somehow the other only girl of color in the class and I scored so low that we were placed in the lowest reading group. But while I had no proof that my score was not low, I knew that it was no coincidence that the 2 students of color were placed in the lowest group. Looking back, I know that this was the beginning of the fire in my spirit. I knew how smart I was, and I knew that Hillary and Paige were no smarter than I. But how could I, a little Black girl in a sea of whiteness, raise my little voice and say that something was wrong? I don't remember being chosen for anything in those first 4 years of school in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And that is all that I remember from kindergarten through 3rd grade. I have never remembered, so I think I must have disengaged. Looking back, I realized just how poor we were. But everyone who lived in Navy housing was poor. We wore hand-me-down clothes. Everyone wore hand-me-downs. My mother sewed some of our clothes. Everyone's mother sewed some of their clothes, or so I thought. We didn't go out to eat. We didn't go on vacations. I didn't even know what going on vacation would look like. Yet, I remember so much about being with my family. Memories of cookouts and playing Monopoly and going to the beach and fishing and crabbing and getting new clothes for Easter, the Easter bunny cake my mother made each year, making our house into a haunted house for Halloween and letting everyone come through so my father could scare them, sitting in the tailgate of our station wagon, going to the drive-in movie with that popcorn we popped at home and put in the brown paper bag. I took what I didn't remember and what I remembered with me when we moved up north. When my father retired from the Navy, we moved to Connecticut. He took a job as a welder at EB, Electric Boat, in Groton, Connecticut. And we moved to New London, Connecticut, into an apartment on Anthony Road. When we lived in Navy housing in Virginia, we lived in townhouse style homes. But New London, and Anthony Road moved us into apartments with people above us and below us. Moving to New London set me in the middle of a multicultural neighborhood of more upper, lower middle, working class people. I was in 4th grade. My mother eventually started working outside of the home part-time as a bank teller. Our home was traditional in many ways. The boys did things with my father like hunting and fishing, and my sister and I went grocery shopping with my mother every Saturday, and helped my mother cook. All of the children had to help clean up, but my brothers did what were considered the boy jobs, like taking out the trash and mopping floors, but the girls dusted and cleaned the kitchen. But after my parents separated, however, gender roles seemed to fade away. Unlike Virginia, however, New London Public Schools saw the little hidden fire in me and threw gasoline on it. I came into 4th grade eager and brand new. First, the new experience of walking to school with my friends without my mother was exciting. We lived within a mile of the school, so we had to walk. And that time was sacred. Laughing, talking about what we were going to do after we did our homework, stopping at Anjo's, the corner store, to spend the 5 cents that was left over from the quarter that my mother gave me from the reduced lunch that I bought at school, until I started bringing my lunch from home in that little house on the prairie tin lunchbox. On my walk from school, I passed by more apartments on Buchanan Road and apartments on Michael Road. That's the neighborhood where I lived, apartments. The other side of town, out by the beach, was where the single family homes were and where people of color were not. Luckily for me, however, this time, my new white teacher's smile was not the kind of forced smile from Mrs. Vienna. No, my new teacher smiled a new smile, one that was filled with the love that teachers should have for their students. Mrs. Rafferty was the first teacher I had at Edgerton Elementary School in New London, and I loved Mrs. Rafferty. I was smart, and they told me so, and they gave me extra work, and they chose me for this or for that. They developed my confidence and leadership abilities. I was celebrated. That celebration came because there were many students of color in the school, but many of them did not excel in academics. So I was held up as an example. All the while, I loved learning. Every child needs to have her own Mrs. Rafferty. And I love my neighborhood and playing outside after school and all day on the weekends, double dutch, stoop ball, basketball, baseball, building forts in the woods we were not supposed to go in, braiding grass down Michael Road Hill in the summer and sledding down the same hill in the winter. I love the people I grew up with, the apartment dwelling people, the upper, lower middle, working class people. I carried all that I remembered and didn't remember with me when we moved in 6th grade. While my family was upper, lower middle, working class, we were always strivers. My family stressed the importance of a good education, but stressed even more the ideals of being independent and able to support yourself. We never talked about being rich, but we knew that we didn't want to be poor. We bought a house in Groton, Connecticut during my 6th grade year. The house had a pool, but as I think back, we never opened it. We had a large backyard, and my mother bought 2 puppies one Christmas. It seemed like we had the American dream. Well, Groton is a military town with a naval base and Navy housing and a larger white population than New London. Groton reminded me a bit of Virginia. It was only a few miles across the bridge from New London, but it was a very different community. When I changed schools, I was again in the minority. Instead of being celebrated for my academic abilities, my abilities were underestimated and questioned. I remember coming to the school full of everything good that Mrs. Rafferty and Edgerton School had poured into me. I was ready to excel, but William Seeley Elementary School in Groton was not ready for me. Mr. LaPointe, a white teacher, met me with that same Virginia smile. This time, the teacher's favorites came with the names like Sarah, Jennifer, and Lisa, the cool white girls who had boyfriends. I came to the school with all A's on my report card, but I was not even tested before they placed me in the regular math class. I knew that there was an advanced math class and I wanted to be in that advanced math class. But again, who was I but this little Black girl in a sea of whiteness? Who was I to question Mr. LaPointe, the teacher, the expert? Well, I took that math book home with me one weekend and I completed every exercise in the entire book. I'm talking every page. What he didn't know is that I had seen his smile before and I knew what it meant. What he didn't know was that I was a nerd. I liked to read whole books as quickly as I could. I challenged myself to finish a whole book in a day. He didn't know who I was. I didn't even tell my mother that I had finished the whole math book in the weekend. I returned to school with a pile of papers in my hand for him to correct. And since I had finished the book, what was he going to give me to do? I still recall this quizzical look on his face and his mouth wide open. Now, the teacher for the advanced math class that I went to, she didn't pay me any mind. I don't even remember her name. But to make sure that they remembered my name, I beat the favorite who was supposed to win the 200-meter race at field day. They were mad at me. It's so funny how we carry these little stories with us. I remember that our house in Groton was foreclosed because my parents separated. My mother went back to college to finish her BA degree, and she worked full-time, and the college was in the opposite direction of school. So she was very busy, and we all had to grow up a bit and take on more chores. We moved 3 times in 8th grade because we were in transition from the house in Groton to Hartford, where my mother found a better job working in social services. We moved to the projects in Hartford. I like to think of Chappelle Gardens as one of the better projects, but it was my introduction into inner city living. Hollywood Hank lived in our connected homes, and word had it, he had been strung out on drugs. The 7 sisters were known because there were 7 of them. My girlfriend Katrina and I jumped double dutch and bought Dipsy Doodles and chocolate candy bars from the truck. And my brother Kelly started making and selling ices from our house. I remember being so mad at my friend Maurice when we were at the basketball court one day and he was licking a white substance from some foil. I was shocked and I was scared because I was like, he's too young to do drugs. I hated Fox Middle School in Hartford because they treated me and every other Black student in that school like we were just another nigger. I was only in the school for about 4 months. And I remember that we had to line up in separate boy and girl lines to go from class to class, like we were in the military. I had come from a school where when the bell rang, students walked freely to their next classes. Teachers were cold. That's what I remember. My friend Katrina told me about a busing program in Hartford called Project Concern, where there was supposed to be an exchange of students between inner city students and suburban students. Suburban students would come to the city schools and the city students would go to the suburban schools, but you know as well as I do, it was just one-way exchange. Black and brown students were exported to white suburban schools to get access to better resources and a better education. At least that's what those who established the program thought. I applied to Project Concern and I was accepted and I started Farmington High School as a freshman. I had to get up at 4 a.m. every morning and my mother had to walk me with my puppy, to the bus stop to catch a city bus that took me to downtown Hartford by 5:30 a.m. to catch another bus that took another 40 minutes or so to arrive at Farmington High School, only to arrive 45 minutes before the students who lived in Farmington arrived. I was happy to get out of Fox Middle School and what I thought would be waiting for me at Weaver High School if I stayed in Hartford. But what I found at Farmington High was more white teacher professional smiles that were not like Mrs. Rafferty's smile of love and encouragement. I wondered if they hated the Project Concern program. But again, I understood their forced smiles. The school sat atop a hill with an F mode in the lawn. The lunchroom served gourmet food. At least that's how I remember it. There were lots of options every day: hot sandwiches, cold sandwiches, hamburgers, hot dogs, French fries, salad bar, in a hotline with euros and anything you liked. I worked hard and I was always ranked first, second, or third in my class. I played basketball and softball, and I remembered going to a team party at one of my teammates' homes. They had this grand house with a full-size indoor pool. And I remember when I began taking French and Spanish in my sophomore year, the only teacher of color in the school was Senora Butler. And so I was happy to start taking her class. I was a top student in French and in Spanish, but my French teacher chose someone else to compete in the state foreign language poetry competition. But Senora Butler chose me. There is something about being chosen. Every child needs to have the opportunity to be chosen. It makes you feel visible and your talents appreciated. So I stayed after school to practice my poem with her, and staying after school was a big thing because remember, I didn't live in Farmington. We rehearsed and rehearsed. When we attended the competition, I remember seeing Madam H and the student who she chose and the student who was in all of my classes. Madam H gave me the professional smile. And I remember some of the poem. The poem was Miedo. De repente me asusta pensar que estoy viviendo. Translated, suddenly it haunts me to think that I am living. And this was a poem by a Cuban writer, Nicolas Guillen. And guess what? I won. And Senora Butler and I looked at one another with an unspoken understanding that we had won. We beat the professional smiles that we faced every day at Farmington High and beyond. We saw Madam H and the other student. They heard that we won. We met their professional smile with one of our own. And I couldn't wait to move back to New London when my mother found a better job. The mice started coming into our apartment and it was time for us to go. I was tired of going out to Farmington so early each morning just to be in spaces that I was not wanted. We were not wanted. I was tired of being away from my friends in my community, and I didn't want the flip-flop. We moved back to New London for my junior and senior years, and I graduated third in my class. I attended Spelman College. I majored in French and Spanish, and by coincidence, I wrote my thesis on Nicolas Guillen, the Cuban poet who gave me the small victory that was so big. So I care so much about injustice and social justice because the child in me saw the way people treated poor and Black and brown people differently than they treated white people. And I saw that it didn't have to be that way. So I still fight to maybe influence others that we have to do something, not just shake our heads or ignore the inequality of resources and opportunities. Our children are watching. Our children are making memories that will become part of their DNA. Thank you.
Roxanne, that was so beautifully told. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The chat room is just a buzz over here with thoughts and expressions. And we do have a little delay between what's here and what YouTube can show. So I'm going to give them time to post some more questions as well. But I loved the "every child needs an opportunity to be chosen" quote that you said. And as you talked about the smile and recognizing the smile on teachers' faces, knowing that you're a mom and raised kids and brought them through educational systems, I'm curious about how it was as a mom to see teacher smiles and those that felt like Miss Rafferty's and those that felt like Miss Vienna or Mr. Lapointe.
Right. Yes.
Smile.
Yes. My kids would tell you that I have what they call the mama walk.
Okay.
So, and I'm pretty sure a lot of mothers have, and probably fathers do have that mama walk. So I was in the school pretty regularly because I already knew those smiles would be there because a lot of times my kids were in the minority in the schools where they attended. So I was vigilant and ready. So and told my kids about the smile. But what's interesting about kids is that they don't want to see that smile. You know, they think the best. And I remember my kids, you know, at some point when they were younger, and it's very different now, but when they were younger, you know, they wanted to know, why is everything about race? Maybe it's not that, you know. And you know, eventually they started to see for themselves.
So Imani says that she knows the smile, and she remembers it specifically. So I guess my question is, do you think that's because you made them aware, or did she just have kind of the wherewithal to kind of pick up on it?
Well, I do believe that part of it is making them aware. But I do think that, you know, we all know when someone isn't sincere, even if it's not about race. If someone's not sincere with you, even as children actually have a pretty good sense of
Mhm.
when something's not quite right. So I can't say it's everything that we said, but I do believe that we were very open. David and I were very open about issues of race and class and gender, even when they were younger. But definitely presenting it to them in a way that they would understand it for their age.
Mhm. And it's funny because a lot of kids recognize it, but it's just the, you know, who has the, and some of them act out and speak out in different manners. And then, you know, that's so in being on the board of ed and being involved and everything, you see, is there any connection to that? And then, you know, the disciplinary rates for Black boys and Black girls versus their white counterparts and things of that nature. And that smile maybe being an impetus.
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, I think this story came to me because I kept saying, well, what story am I going to tell? And it's because I think everybody should think of their education narrative. It tells a lot about, you know, this isn't just about education. This is telling about my life. And because I'm still in education, it really is, you know, my life. And so, yes, there are disconnects between teachers and students. Doesn't have to be, as I said, it doesn't have to be that way. But because race is such a touchy situation, people don't want to be truthful about these issues that we face and that our kids face. And so that there's a lot of miscommunication between, say, teachers that are not of the same race as the students that they teach. And so yeah, there's a disconnect there sometimes.
Great, thank
Roxanne,
you.
how did your education narrative shape your decision? I note that you are a proud graduate of Spelman, a historically Black college, university. And how does it inform the kind of work you've chosen to do in terms of your life?
It definitely influenced going to Spelman. While I loved New London, and I do believe I got a really great education from New London, but what I noticed, and I noticed this with my children and just with other students that I work with, is that when you excel, you are in classes that structurally have been created mainly for the white students in the school. So if you go to a very multicultural school, most of the upper level classes are the white students in the school. And so for me, even in London High, most of the students were the white students that lived in the community, the white students that lived down by the beach. So I was still kind of separated academically from the Black students in my neighborhood. So I was ready to go. You know, I wanted to see someplace where Black people were in charge. As a matter of fact, I never visited Spelman. They didn't have a webpage. I just heard about it and I wanted to go. And then that's what I did.
Great. That's great. That's great. So in the chat room, we do have some comments. Beautiful story. It's beautiful how you continued to study that poet after your connection to the poem. And someone is asking you to repeat the name of the poet again.
Okay, Nicholas Guillen, last name Guillen.
Beautiful. More people need to hear the story, especially teachers. Have you ever shared this story with teachers? Is a question from our chat room from Janice.
I haven't had the opportunity, so this was a good opportunity to share the story.
Absolutely, and we have some teachers on the line today, so so that is happening. Just looking. Also in the chat room, we have someone who couldn't get into the chat earlier, but also wanted to share that the story Denise shared was also beautiful. So 2 beautiful stories that have caused her to boohoo a bit on the line today. For the question from Nancy, did your high school guidance counselor help with the college or were you alone in that journey?
Oh no, I went back to New London High School, and New London was on top of things. I have to give it to New London. I'm a proud graduate of New London High, and I can't think of her name was Mrs. I'm seeing her face right now, and I can't believe that I forgot her name. But she was very, very helpful. I'm seeing her face. I can't remember her name, but she did help.
I'm seeing a young man up here, Kafense, you may know. How do you use your past experience of educational microaggressions to navigate your approach to KimCan and the Board of Ed?
Listen to my son.
Listen to that.
Question, Kafense. Well, the way that I use these past experiences to navigate being on the Board of Ed and my business KimCan is that I keep in mind that all students need a Mrs. Rafferty. And I try very hard to be a Mrs. Rafferty because some students may not have that Mrs. Rafferty in school. And so just trying to meet students where they are and not, and try to get other adults, other professionals to meet students where they are and have a certain kind of hope for students. Sometimes I think we get into a habit of categorizing students and forgetting that this is one moment in time, but that students are going to grow. They might not get the lesson or the lesson you think they're supposed to get at this moment, but they're going to get some lesson. So it's like we have to figure out what a student needs at this moment. So I use that a lot when I work with students and actually, especially with KimCan, trying to get parents to understand that too, because we as parents and everything I'm saying now, I say it to myself too. Sometimes as parents, we want our kids to be at 0.7 and they're really at 2, and it's okay for them to be at 2. They will get to 7, but just giving them that space and time to direct their own journey.
Beautiful, beautiful. Kevin, am I getting everything in the chat box?
You're getting more than me. I think you have a better internet connection.
Oh, okay. We are navigating through our challenges. So this, I think we have a comment from Babs. It's amazing how common these stories are for us and how our children learn early on when they're not welcomed. A very astute second grader you were, right, to pick up on all that. So thank you so much, Roxanne. That was beautiful. We appreciate your sharing.
Thank you.
Tonight, to our storytelling friends, Denise and Roxanne both shared some beautiful stories with us. And it is exactly the purpose of why we join together and won't let COVID-19 stop the community building that we believe happens through story. As we listened to both Denise and Roxanne tonight, there were moments that we smiled and cheered and laughed. There are moments that, teared up and felt the angst, anxiety, sadness associated with it. And we believe that it's those connections that help us see in each other, broaden our own experiences and connect to each other's experiences. So this is an amazing, the New Haven, Greater New Haven area is an amazing area full of people just like Denise and Roxanne who have amazing stories, and we want to continue to use Storytellers New Haven as a way to promote that. These stories are up live on our YouTube channel, Storytellers New Haven. You can go back and revisit Denise again, Roxanne's story. You can also go back to our archives and see the other stories that Baobab Tree Studios has helped us to produce since we've been doing Storytellers New Haven. So please visit that. Visit our Facebook page and follow us there and like us there. Support Baobab Tree Studios and support the content they're putting out as well. We don't know what May will bring, but I can guess that we'll be probably remote again for May. We have 2 great tellers lined up, and we will continue to do this, whether we're asking you to log in from home or again, able to gather at Concat in the Orchid Cafe, because we believe in it and we believe in the power of story. So we hope you'll come back and join us in May. If you're sitting there thinking, how can I tell? I have a story on my heart I want to share. It is really as simple as just shooting us an email, Kevin or I, at storytellersnewhaven@gmail.com, or sending us a message on our Facebook page. That is how it happened. That's how both Denise and Roxanne got here. The call went out and they approached us either by email or just grabbing us at the end of one of our tellings and said they'd like to tell. All we ask is that you have some connection to New Haven, that you live in, work in, play in, or love New Haven. And that's the connection to be here. Kev, am I missing anything?
No, I think you said everything. You know, we thank Kevin Ewing and also Concat, even though we're not there, they've been a willing support in Graustein. But also just I'm really happy and delighted to see some regulars who have on the chat room, and also some new people. And so I think this was the opportunity for people who couldn't make it, whether they were busy on those Mondays or if they lived out of town. So I think as we've been looking for silver linings, I think this is one of those silver linings that we open up to a whole other community who can log in with us. So if we have to be here in May and June, then, you know, we can welcome more and more people. But I'm really happy and want to say thanks to our regulars and all the new people who took the time to be with us this evening.
Absolutely. Looks like we're up to about 60 people were with us tonight.
That's great.
Very nice.
Awesome. So
that's all because of the tellers.
No, that's so nice.
Yeah. Rock tonight.
So that's the challenge. Our May tellers got to bring it, right?
Let's see, we should give the date of the May one, right? So we are on May 11th, Monday, May 11th at 6:30 p.m. We will, oh, you know what? If you're a new person and you're not on our mailing list, please shoot us an email at storytellersnewhaven@gmail.com so we can get you on our constant contact. Again, storytellersnewhaven@gmail.com. And so with that, I think we will say good night. Thank you. And we'll see you in May.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.